I did play with some amazing girls on that team. None of us ever had the Olympics to strive to, but all the girls after us did. So that's cool. I hope she's listening to the podcast right now. Randy Griffin, also Kendall Hanley. I'm so proud of you both.
This is Serious Girl Podcast. I'm Anna. I'm an entomologist. I'm a scientist, and I'm using this podcast to talk to all kinds of growers and eaters who are serious about their farms, their gardens, their local food systems. And I'm asking, how can science help? Today's co-host is Casey. She's an experienced market farmer, having grown in Northern California and now in the Bitterroot Valley out in Western Montana. Her husband, Jesse, are transitioning into non-commercial farming. They are homesteaders now. You'll be hearing plenty from her because her experience brings so many unique perspectives and because she's my best friend. And another thing you need to know about Casey is she is a Granger. The Grange, officially the National Grange of the Order of Patrons of Husbandry, founded in 1867, is the oldest American agricultural advocacy organization created to support farm families' economic and social well-being. It acts as nonpartisan, fraternal organization that promotes rural life, community service, and agricultural policy. She surprised me a couple of years ago in a phone call saying, I gotta get going because I have to sell baked potatoes at a Grange event. I said, I didn't even know you were involved with your local Grange. She said, yeah, of course, I'm on the board. And I should have known better because Casey is just one of those people who does things. And we all know how much easier it is to not do things than it is to do things. So people like this really stand out. We're going to pick up where we left off last time, feeling a little disappointed that our scheme to become grasshopper ranchers didn't pay off.
Here's my feeling about laws. They don't ever just go away. You're never going to have less laws. It's always just more and more.
Right.
I thought I had this great idea with grasshopper harvesting operation. And I was going to save the world. I always joke whenever I'm like, that's going to save the world.
Well, we have a joke. Like I have worked in agriculture for a really long time. Like I've worked in pest management of agricultural crops. And every once in a while, scientists from outside of that agricultural applied world will come in and say, hey, I have this great idea. And they'll like publish a paper. And then their university will advertise that finding, that research finding, like as though they've solved agriculture.
Yeah, we did this great thing. We saved the world.
Kind of. It's some young marketing person's job at the university to talk to all of the nerds who are doing research and make it applicable. And so it always gets oversold. It's not the researcher's fault. It's the marketing team for the university.
Yeah, it's like marketing is like 99% of like how we know about things. Still to this day, I'm convinced that we saved all of China by creating yellow rice.
To this day.
To this day. Still. And look at them now.
I think that's what this whole podcast for me is about, is that I have a broken heart because I don't think the public values the work that I do as a researcher. But at the same time, it's hard to make the argument if it takes years and years and years to find out this one little detail about this stupid fly. And they're like, why are we paying you so much?
Well, you got to do the marketing too now. That's the thing. Right? Be like, this is important because, and relate it to the common man and woman. I don't know. I am not a big self-promoter. Like I got off social media. That's kind of what social media is there for. It's like, look at me. I did all these great things. It never show you all the bad things that happen along the way and the things that are like no result or anything like that. I still get on there just to see like what upcoming events there are. It's important for that and like to advertise events. But we just finished our live at the Grange season, had our membership party and pie breakfast, and then I'm going to stay off there for a little while now.
I would like to hear a recap of your live at the Grange season. I want to hear more about the different organizations, like the different folks who come and about the community.
I'll send you just right now, the flyer we just had for this last season. I have my Rocky Mountain Grange 116 photo album.
You did send me a picture of a bunch of people wearing sashes, and I wanted the context of that.
Okay, that wasn't anything with Live at the Grange. That was the State Grange Convention. Once a year, all the Granges in the state get together to meet for State Grange. Last year it fell upon Rocky Mountain Grange, our local subordinate Grange. So we hosted all the state Grange or all the subordinate and Pomona Granges here at Rocky Mountain Grange. 3 days, very just like procedural sort of, you set up in this like formation, masters over here in the corner and the secretary and treasurer over here and the lecturers right here, and then all the delegates, you get 2 delegates from each Grange can come and submit resolutions, things like you want this to happen, and like a policy level, could be like state or federal, and then all the delegates vote on these resolutions, either like vote to send them to state or vote them down, sort of thing.
What were some of the things that were under consideration this year?
The biggest one was a resolution to increase the dues to state Grange. So each local Grange can set their dues for their membership for the year. The vote was on raising, I believe, the dues to maybe $40 to state. That was the biggest one, and the most debate on the floor was like people for or against the dues increase. There's a lot of different like Grange programs. Part of it goes to a scholarship program. There's 2 Montana State Grange scholarships every year of like $2,000. So they do small like grants for programming. We applied for one, and actually the one we applied for was through National Grange, this Rural Life Initiative grant. Programming that helps the community. Our Live at the Grange program like exactly fits that bill, except for they want the programming to happen between March and September. And ours is exactly opposite, because like all of our membership is mostly agricultural, working from March to September. Over half of our Grangers are ag or value added farmers market sort of people. I was telling this to the National Grange president, Chris Hamp, and she reminds me so much of my mom. And we have this is like easygoing like way of talking to each other. She's like, go ahead and just apply anyway and see what happens. Yeah. So we did, and we're supposed to hear anytime now. We'll see.
Well, it sounds like you're one of the most burgeoning Granges in the region. Like you've had a lot of new membership since, like, tell me more about. I just want to say first and foremost, you're living my life dream with all those sashes.
The sashes.
This is a life dream realized that, well, I didn't get to, but I get to live vicariously through you. There are so many trappings of all these old memberships, like all these old clubs. Like, that I'm the secretary of the Eastern branch of the Entomological Society of America, which actually I am missing the branch meeting right now. Like, I'm really falling short on my responsibilities, and I have been slowly but surely eliminating responsibilities, but there's always a little bit of regret. Like, me as secretary, I had a responsibility of maintaining a couple plaques. Have you ever seen these plaques that like they have little plates on them and you put like this year's president, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like back in the 60s, they had started these plaques with every year the president of the Eastern branch, and they'd have it engraved. And it was my job to get that plaque engraved and bring it to the meeting and put up these plaques on easels at every meeting. And at one point, I was going through some trouble moving and didn't want to move these plaques. They're huge. They're super, super heavy. And someone was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, the plaques that are up at every meeting? And they're like, no. Everybody I talked to had no idea. They didn't notice that these plaques were at every meeting. I was like, yeah, they're usually like by the registration table. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, they didn't even know you'd gone to all that trouble.
Well, we decided to retire the plaques. And like part of me is kind of like, oh, it's like the trappings of the olden days, like your sash for being a Grange. What's your role, Grange?
So that sash was in my state Grange position. So at this last state Grange convention, I got nominated and then voted as the Montana State Grange. I'm spilling too much because some of this is like ritualistic like stuff. I'm not supposed to spill the beans on some of these things. But I will say that the sash colors represent like subordinate Grange. Is it a state Grange? Those were our state Grange colors. And then the National Grange has a different color for their sashes. And I'll say this too. We have some plaques at the Rocky Mountain Grange that I think are so amazing. We have an award on the wall. It's a plaque from 1959 when Rocky Mountain Grange won the Superior Ritualism Award. And then we still have that up on the wall today. And then, so yeah, the Grange has been just like declining enrollment year to year, every year. And so that's the thing. This National Grange president, Chris Hamp, is really trying to reach out to all the different Granges and be like, what can the Grange do for you? What do you want your Grange to be? And really reinforcing it. It's like, your Grange is whatever you need it to be, whatever the community needs, make it so, sort of thing. But also about the plaques, I want to say this: Rocky Mountain Grange, in addition to the Superior Ritualism 1959 award, we have a whole like string of plaques where you like hang one onto the next of departed Grange members. And there is something like probably, I don't know, 60, 70 names up there of former Rocky Mountain Grange members that have passed away. And they have the year of their death on there. And it starts, about 1949, works its way through these couple like arrangements of plaques, and it ends kind of 1979 or something. And it's like, uh-oh, is that when the guy who made the plaques died? Was he maybe not the last one, but they just didn't continue on with that plaque tradition after that?
I'm really, really torn about this. Those kinds of responsibilities were taken very seriously by our predecessors, and it was really important. But it's also like, oh, I hate going to the trophy store to make a stupid plaque,
Mhm.
and nobody wants them.
Nobody even knew they were there. Well, that
Nobody
was
even
the
knew they
thing
were
with the
there.
convention. We really got a taste of like how these folks who grew up as kids in the Grange and their parents were Grangers and even their grandparents were members of the Grange, and they're carrying on the tradition of the Grange. Not our local Grange, but the next local Grange up, Corvallis Grange, has their master has come over once in a while. He's like, I got to show you some stuff. And he's like, I have to show you the implements and how you implement the implements. I'll say there is like some secret stuff I can't say on the podcast. I wouldn't call it a secret society, but as part of this ritualism, I feel like it's behind closed doors. You have to be a member to view like the special handshake sort of ritualism sort of things, but also, does that actually bind you together in more of like a bond that other people outside don't know about? So you're more bonded together,
I think
I
it
don't
has
know.
to be important. I am paying attention to this because I am thinking more about my Patreon and what will make that a valuable place that people want to go. Because right now, there's no reason for people to want to join my Patreon. There's nothing there. I think what's going to make it special is like if people start communicating to each other on it and there's people there
Mm.
talking. There's not people there talking yet.
Yeah, I need to check it out because I really don't know that much about Patreon. I have a friend who does like a monthly email sort of blog. He's a writer, he's an author, and does all sorts of interesting things. He was the Montana State Poet Laureate up until last year. Chris Latre is this guy's name, and he is Métis Indian. They were the most recently federally recognized tribe. It's the Little Shell Band of the Chippewa Cree. Name of his blog is The Irritable Métis. And so once a month, I'll get his email. You can subscribe if you want, sort of thing, but he'll send it regardless. You don't have to pay, but at the end, it's like, if you want to pay, here you go. And it's been enough times, and I really enjoy his writing and reading his writing. And something about that last email is like, oh my gosh, it's finally time. I should just like click the button and pay $10, sort of thing.
I have definitely subscribed to newsletters like that one, and I have definitely subscribed to Patreons for a few different various reasons because I wanted like their extra content or there was something really unique they were offering. I don't know what that thing is for me. I think he has like a more inherent understanding of the value of his work where I don't really know because most of the stuff that I have on offer is publicly available. Like everybody has an extension person that they can talk to for free. I just haven't figured out what my unique value is. I think it's going to be the community. Like that was my hope. And I think that's why like all the rituals that you're talking about are kind of important. It depends. Well, I think what you're doing with Live at the Grange is more important for making community.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how Live at the Grange came together. So we just finished our 5th season of Live at the Grange. It was the second Friday of the month, and 5 local bands to come to play to benefit 5 local nonprofits. And we've had so far for 5 seasons about, average of 5 bands a season, all different bands. Like every time, we've never had one back, which is We would love to have some of these guys back. It goes to show how much local music there is to support, which is awesome. And we've supported a unique nonprofit every time. We had some local sponsors to help like cover the cost of putting it on. And it all kind of started right on the heels of COVID, trying to get community back together again and trying to put musicians back to work who had been out of work because of COVID, because there weren't live events happening. And to benefit a local nonprofit. It was like a really feel good sort of thing. But just the way our Grange is set up and all the different Granges are different. But ours is a perfect live, small music venue with the best dance floor in town. We're like, how do we put all this together? We're slowly like trying to grow it into like a better thing. Like we're finally getting our own PA. We've been using the one from the music store. Whenever we had a band that needed to use a PA, we would have to just reach out throughout the community, be like, who has stage monitors? We need 2 more. Very much in the spirit of the Grange and like a rural agricultural based community organization. That's kind of the whole idea is like Grangers are traditionally farmers. You come together in this like club where you can all share resources. Be like, hey, I have a harrow if anyone ever needs to borrow. I'll put it out there, but sometimes I need to borrow like a really tall extension ladder. But because I don't have one of those sort of things. So it's kind of just like pooling your resources.
Is that something that Granges have done in the past, is like had storage of shared equipment? Because I know that's something that here in New Hampshire, local, it's like NRCS's version of extension. It's like the local conservation district. They will sometimes buy equipment that everybody in that county can share, and it's stored either at some public place or like one farmer says, I'll store it, but they also get first dibs at it or something like that. Is that something the Grange has done?
We have talked about doing that at our local Grange because we do have quite a few like farmers that would benefit from such a program. I'm sure that other Granges have. And just like Chris Hamp, the National Grange president, she's like, your Grange is whatever you need it to be. Like, make it so. We don't have that at our Grange currently, but we kind of do have like, our list of members, and we just kind of like I know Randy has like a moldboard plow. If we ever need that, we could just call him up. It's pretty cool. Just I don't know if it is like the ritualism that like binds us, but it's funny because Hamilton is like a pretty small town. That's where the Grange is, our Rocky Mountain Grange. But they also support, I don't even know if I can name all of them. All of these civic clubs. You got Kiwanis, you got the Elks, you got the Eagles. I can't even name them all. And it's so funny because I was just watching just like a couple weeks ago the episode of The Simpsons where Homer joins the Stonecutters. Do you remember that? All of a sudden, like he has some birthmark, and they're like, he's the chosen one. And then so he's like the master or whatever they call it of the Stonecutters. Like they give him all like handshakes and secret codes. And remember the plumber was coming to work on his house and be like, I'll be back in a month. Oh, you're a stonecutter. And just like twitches a valve, turns off the leak.
They were making fun of the Masons,
Yeah.
which, like, they actually, I think they do have a lot of power. I only say that because I remember it being a big part of War and Peace. Remember a couple years ago, I was doing a very close reading of War and Peace, and I was trying to relate it to the Iraq war conflict.
Oh, wow. No, I
That
do
pro-
remember this. Well, yeah,
that
and so the
project didn't go
Masons
very far.
are another one. And from what I've heard, the Masons, they started out as like Masons. They were stonemasons. They were like a union. That's kind of part of it too. They can get together with the power of multiple people, and it's not like they're setting prices or price gouging, but they can really do a lot with the power of each other together. Because so one of the things the Grange did, like back in the day, was first off, were the ones who advocated through the resolution process and all the way up to national rural free mail delivery. That was a Grange idea.
Really?
Yeah. And the other thing was they got together back in the railroad days, railroads expanding out west to get together all the people to come to terms with like setting grain prices because the railroads were just like out of hand, like price gouging. It was the farmers through the Grange that got together to be like, here's what the price of grain is going to be, and we aren't going to sell it for any less. Here's another thing I think is pretty neat is a lot of these state Granges were formed before the state was even formed.
Right.
It was like Washington, Idaho, Oregon, all these places that were territories. The populace at the time, they're like, it's going to be a state soon and we need to get together, and power of numbers, we could decide how we want the state to be. So a lot of these state granges were formed before the state was even a state so that they could have input in the government because they had the power of the farmers, which is such a big sway at the time.
I have my Butte America hat right behind us.
Exactly. Yes,
Speaking of that,
pre-Montana statehood. I
pre-Montana.
know.
It just goes to show you how important farmers used to be. Like they used to be the dominant profession and not as more, but I interrupted you. What were you saying?
All I was going to say was like, any chance I ever get to go to Butte, I will take it.
I love it. I'm always big up in Butte. Like you gotta
Mhm.
go.
I know. Well, that was our
Especially
plan after we did that last year, and you and Jesse's sister both at the same time were visiting, and we're like, let's make it into a Butte trip. We're like, let's just do this every summer. Whoever wants to come, we'll invite them this one week and we'll take them to Butte.
that's
Or
not a bad idea.
mishmash whatever visitor we may have with whatever other visitors. I don't know. Everyone loves Butte.
I think it was at your wedding. Kaner turned to me and he was like, well, we don't really have a reason to get together again unless you get married.
Oh, some pressure. Well, really, a wedding is just like a perfect excuse to have a party. And that's how me and Jesse looked at it. It's like, let's get all our friends together and have a party and call it a wedding.
I think that if you said, okay, we're getting a place in Butte, let me know if we're going to be here, come. I think people are desperate for that kind of thing to happen.
Well, we might get to go to Butte this summer, and we've never been, but they have a free festival every summer. It's called Butte Folk Fest. And all sorts of different, like world music, Americana, all sorts of different genres come together in different stages in downtown Butte. The other big thing in Butte of the year, besides Butte Folk Fest, is St. Patty's Day, because they have such a huge Irish population. Like a quarter of Butte is either nationals or Irish, like sons of Irish immigrants. It's just such an Irish city. So that's
Yeah.
pretty neat. I don't think they turn the river green or anything, or maybe the river already is naturally green through there. Not naturally, but very unnaturally. Butte also the biggest super fun site in America, like right in town. So very interesting stuff going on. From what we've heard, it gets rowdy St. Patrick's Day, like Boston or Chicago level.
I mentioned that I'm currently skeeving off from the Eastern branch of the Entomological Society of America meeting, which has always been held on St. Patrick's Day weekend. I never really got to celebrate St. Patrick's Day because I was always at this meeting. I remember very distinctly being a graduate student in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which also does a very big St. Patrick's Day celebration, and being in like an ill-fitting professional outfit at lunch. And there was like two people making out right next to me. And I was just like, ugh. And they like smelled bad, you know?
Still, always like living on a farm, St. Patrick's Day has had this sort of like green up significance here. And it's like, oh, this is like time. It is the day we need to start seeds. We just had one of our biggest winter storms of the whole year, but it's already melting off and now it's supposed to be like 70 degrees this week and the grass is greening up. And anyway, it just makes me think of like, wow, we're already behind. Every time we get to St. Patrick's Day every year, it's like, we're behind. Go, 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 go.
You had a really weird winter this year.
I'm telling you, we just had like a atmospheric river and it was snowing, snowing, snowing up on the mountain, and it just rained, rain, rain down here in the valley. And we had another wind event where just saturated, soggy soils and big ponderosa trees getting blown down because the saturated soils.
There was like a part of this winter where I was like several weeks into sub-freezing temperatures, and you said you were like out and about without a jacket, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that one bit.
The temperatures were warm. People already had like things budding out. Fruit trees like a month ago were starting to bud out in the valley. About all the apples, because I don't know what the chilling requirements are exactly. Maybe some apples are different than others. I don't know if they met those chilling requirements this year. So what's that going to mean for?
Oh, I bet they did. I mean, the one thing I would worry about would be like if they all budded out too early and then get a late frost.
Yeah, that's something I was wondering about just after this winter. What happens if they don't meet your chilling requirements?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can find out. We had this conversation a while back around St. Patrick's Day, but we're coming into this apple bloom season, which is watched with careful anticipation. All of the physiological things that happen with apple trees are regulated by temperature. And when we talk about chill requirements, this is essentially how apple trees tell what time of year it is. Apple trees will enter endodormancy in the winter to protect themselves from freezing. Chilling requirements represent the specific amount of cold exposure needed to deactivate growth inhibiting hormones like abscisic acid and to downregulate other genes, allowing the trees to respond to spring warmth. While older studies use chilling hours, current peer-reviewed literature favors a more dynamic model. There's also the Utah model. This model measures chill portions, accounting for the fact that higher temperatures in the late afternoon can actually cancel out chill accumulation earlier that day. There's many ways to calculate this. I don't think there's any fear of these chilling requirements being unmet in Montana, but there are certainly areas of the country where chilling requirements are chronically unmet. Some of the consequences of unmet chilling: when a tree does not receive its required chill portions, its internal timing is disrupted, leading to physical deformities. You might see blind wood. So these are bare branches where buds failed to wake up, and these rosette leaf clusters. You might see reproductive failure. So this is uneven blooming that makes pollination hard or nearly impossible and creates a wide variance in fruit maturity, wide variance in time to fruit maturity. Yield loss: fruit is typically smaller, misshapen, and has lower sugar content. And then, continuous years of unmet chill depleting those trees' carbohydrate reserves can lead to tree decline and make it susceptible to other pests and disease. So as traditional apple growing regions warm, research has pivoted towards two main solutions. Number one is genetics, breeding low chill cultivars like Dorset Gold or Anna. I've never heard of those. I'm not really sure what they taste like, but they can thrive with fewer than 300 hours of cold. There's also chemical interventions. The application of dormancy breaking agents can actually trigger the biochemical signals usually provided by winter. The takeaway here is chilling is a critical hormone reset button. Without it, the tree's development becomes uncoordinated. There's significant economic losses just because of things coming out at weird times. Casey recently helped me get accustomed to hosting live events for my Patreon community. If you want to come over, everything there is free right now. And you can find a recording of a little chit chat of us over a video interview I recorded with Jeremy Delisle from University of New Hampshire on how to start and maintain a home apple orchard. Casey had some great insights there too. I'll make sure to post her Live at the Grange flyer where you can see this year's lineup as well as the nonprofits being supported, which included Buffalo Field Campaign. I will have her speak about Buffalo Field Campaign another day because it is a particularly interesting and particularly important part of her life's work. It is an advocacy group that speaks on behalf of wild, free-roaming bison herds in and around Yellowstone Park. This is very interesting. It's very controversial. Stay tuned to hear more from Casey about that. And if you already thought Casey's interests could not get more varied, our conversation shifted to this year's Olympics. And I got my chance to ask her about her experience playing hockey as a youth, because she really isn't into self-promotion, and I've really never gotten a chance to ask her about this.
I grew up playing hockey, and it wasn't even until 1998 that women's hockey first was an Olympic sport. Not until 1998, and I was 16 years old then. It was never anything I strived to do because it wasn't a thing until, like, I was pretty much done playing youth hockey.
You were playing with boys at that point, right?
Well, I was on the boys team. I was the one girl and I played goalie. And it was like kind of stereotypical, but it was never anything like a girl knew she could strive to do was be an Olympic hockey player, you know? So all of a sudden it's like 1996. They're like, we're going to include women's hockey in the Olympics. And so they had to scrape together a team. What they do is they hold like tryouts in all the different regions of the US. And so you had to have an invite. So I did. I got invited to try out for the US development team, is what they call it, the Southeast Regional Tryout, where it's not really hockey country in the Southeast. It is getting to be more and more because, Northerners moving down to like the Sun Belt and retirement and bringing their hockey playing kids with them. So there are some really amazing teams in the South. We always got our butts whooped by Atlanta, and then some of these teams in Florida would like kick our ass in Raleigh. But anyways, 7 rolls around, and here I am in Huntsville, Alabama, trying out for the U.S. development team with like 30 other goalies and maybe like 10 skaters. So really I didn't have a chance because not only were there so many girl goalies playing on guys' teams, no one had ever heard of me. The people they chose for these teams, actually, I don't think they chose a single person from that Southeast because nobody was on their radar. All of these girls that got picked to be on that first Olympic team were products of New England prep schools.
Mm.
And that's how they were on their radar because they were, being pegged to go to Ivy Leagues. They had to hold these open trials because that's how the US development team process works, but then they already had their players in mind. And turns out it was these prep school girls that came from like wealthy backgrounds whose parents like could afford to send them to prep school to get scouted. It was kind of a pipeline that is inaccessible for most. But you know what? I will say I have been watching a lot of professional women's hockey league this year, which just started in 2024. They're amazing. They're really, really good. I look at them and I'm like, what it takes to get scouted is like, you got to be big, you got to be strong. I'm only 5'1". I wouldn't ever made the cut. As far as women's hockey goes, the US team had the best team, like in the Olympics. They were so good. Definitely outplayed every other team. USA men, they only got lucky and had some lucky saves. That's how that went down.
Well, I've always wanted to know the full story, but I also, one of my most devoted podcast listeners is my father. And I know that he would like to know more about that. So is there anything else that you want Dad to know about your experience with?
About women's hockey. Well, at first I was like, geez, if only I could have gone to New England prep school to get in that pipeline to go to the Ivies. And then, but really the thing was, I never had Olympics to strive for until all of a sudden it was last minute. They're like, we got to put together a team. And I'm like almost aged out at the time
Yeah.
of like amateur hockey. It was really cool to know that it was going to be there for all the girls like after me though. And so let me say this, and I think this is really cool too. Like women's hockey is still such a small community. Like people know people. So in the last Olympics, I knew 2 different people who were involved in those Olympics through women's hockey. My last year playing hockey, I did play on the girls team that had only just started because it had always just been co-ed, but all of a sudden there was enough like interest in girls hockey that we could form our own team. There's a girl from that team, Kendall Hanley. She was like our hot shot skater. And so she's been a referee and she was one of these Olympic referees in Nagano, like reffing these women's games. I was like, oh my gosh, I played with her. So get this. There's another girl on that same team, Randy Griffin, grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, but her mom was Korean. So she got to play. And this was such an amazing moment in those Olympics too, because Korea had a unified team, North and South Korea unified to come up with one Olympic team, which is just like a tearjerker. It's like these 2 countries that have been at odds for so long. And that was the only sport they did it in. It was women's hockey. They created a unified team. Randy Griffin from Raleigh, North Carolina, was the captain of this Korean unified women's hockey team. And let me tell you, they got their butts spanked by these actually hockey playing countries. Anyway, 2 people from my women's team were both at the Olympics, which is just goes to show you how small of a community it is, I think it's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
That's so cool. I was like crying tears of joy for Randy Griffin out there. She was like a spokesperson to the US about the Korean unified team and couldn't be more proud. I hope she's listening to the podcast right now. Randy Griffin, also Kendall Hanley. I'm so proud of you both. I did play with some amazing girls on that team. And like I said, none of us ever had the Olympics to strive to, but all the girls after us did. So that's cool.
Well, maybe they won't hear it, but Dad will, and I think he'll really like that story. Well, we'll leave it there, but I hope you appreciate our many little forays away from agriculture. Serious Grower Podcast is a production of New Hampshire Community Supported Research. If you are interested in becoming a co-host or would like to learn more about our mission to democratize agricultural research, visit our website at nhcsr.org. If you want to learn more about home orcharding, make sure to check out our YouTube channel at NHCSR, where we're sharing insights from the agricultural research community and vlogging our research efforts on the farm. You can support this work by liking and subscribing, and even better, consider joining our Patreon community.